Have you ever heard of love stories that begin with sacrifice? Probably yes. But this one will blow your mind. He was a millionaire. Young. Powerful. He had everything: cars, travel, fame. And even with the world at his feet, he decided to accept an arranged marriage to a woman who many said was ugly, clumsy, unattractive. But no one, absolutely no one, expected what she would do at the altar. And when she did, no one could forget it. Not even him. But wait, it's still too early for you to understand the magnitude of this twist. Before diving into this story that seems like a movie scene, and yes, it really happened, I need to ask you something: subscribe to the channel. Click here. Because here you won't find bland, predictable, or recycled content. Here, you'll only find stories that stick with you. That give you goosebumps. That become the topic of conversation. So if you like this kind of narrative that doesn't beat around the bush, that keeps you hooked until the end, then like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what you're about to see will leave you thinking for days. Back to the story. His name was Ethan. Son of a hotel magnate. He grew up in London, but spent much of his youth traveling between private islands, yachts in Ibiza, and meetings atop skyscrapers in Dubai. A lifestyle that everyone said was unattainable. The kind of man who lives in a world apart, surrounded by models, exclusive parties, and million-dollar decisions. But he was always different. He always carried a sense of family responsibility far above the norm. At 28, after the sudden death of his father, Ethan inherited the presidency of the family hotel chain. And with the position came a promise to respect his father's wish to maintain traditional ties with India, the family's homeland. And that wish included an arranged marriage to the daughter of an allied family. A woman named Anya. Unlike him, Anya lived a completely different reality. Raised in a simple village, far from the spotlight, without social media, without expensive makeup, without status. She was described by her relatives as intelligent but strange. Shy. Modest. And yes, many spoke harshly about her appearance. They said she wasn't worthy of a man like Ethan. That he deserved better. That it would be a scandal. But Ethan, as always, stood his ground. He respected the agreement. He said that someone's face did not define their worth. And he decided to get to know her. The trip to their first date was full of speculation. The international press found out. Gossip blogs said he was being forced. Others said it was just a symbolic gesture, that he would never go through with the wedding. But he went ahead. And then the day arrived. The wedding would be in Jaipur, in an ancient palace surrounded by gardens. Flowers were brought in from the Himalayas. The entire ceremony was planned as an event respectful of tradition. Ethan arrived dressed in traditional Indian attire, the sherwani, to applause and curious glances. He seemed calm. But he didn't smile. The guests murmured. Many looked discreetly at each other, waiting for the moment of revelation. Anya's entrance. Some even bet that she wouldn't come. That it was all a charade. But when she appeared, silence fell over the hall. She was different. Very different. Her face, which everyone had judged before seeing her, was now covered with a red veil. But that wasn't what caught their attention. It was her posture. Her steady gaze. The way she walked. There was no hesitation. There was no shyness. She seemed determined. As if she knew something no one else knew. And it was there, at that moment, that Ethan's eyes finally lit up. For the first time, he smiled. The ceremony began. The words were spoken. The rituals followed traditional Hindu protocol. Until the moment of the final vow arrived, that moment when both parties accept the marriage before the gods and their family. And then, she did something no one expected. But before I tell you what it was, I need to remind you, this kind of story, this emotion, this build-up, you can only find it here. So if you haven't clicked the subscribe button yet, do it now. Because in the second part of this story, you'll understand the real reason behind Ethan's choice. And Anya's secret. A secret kept for years. A secret that turned the ceremony into an international scandal. But wait. Come back here. We still have something to understand in this first part. Because while everyone was stuck on appearances, Ethan was already on another level. He was paying attention to gestures. To the silence. To the weight of unspoken words. And when she looked at him, even with the veil over her face, he knew there was something more there. Something deep. Something no one else was seeing. And maybe that's what made him accept everything so naturally. while international journalists commented in real time. While guests looked at each other, waiting to laugh or be shocked. While the groom's cousins and uncles whispered about how he could subject himself to this. He just watched. And then she raised her hand. She asked for the microphone. She broke protocol. And with a firm voice, she looked at everyone present and said. Before I became a man's wife, I needed to become whole for myself. Her voice echoed through the hall like a silent explosion. Those who expected shyness were shocked by her firmness. Those who counted on an embarrassing moment were left speechless. Anya continued, now walking toward the altar, stopping right next to Ethan. She looked into his eyes for a few seconds, as if reading the soul of an old friend, and then turned back to the audience. For years, I was taught to bow my head. To hide who I am. To think I was a burden, a second-rate choice. They said I wasn't pretty enough. Too polite to be fun. Too weird to be loved. Ethan watched in absolute silence. He didn't move. He didn't make a single gesture. He just listened. And in the background, you could see some of the guests clearly uncomfortable. They shifted in their seats, exchanged glances, and some were already whispering, trying to understand if this was just a rant, or a scandal about to explode. But I chose to no longer be a spectator in my own story, Anya continued. I chose not to be the invisible woman at the altar of a millionaire that everyone thought was unattainable. I didn't come here to accept an arranged marriage. I came here to offer a new beginning. But not as a wife. As a free woman. The veil fell. Literally. With a simple movement, she removed the fabric covering her face, and for the first time, everyone saw her completely. There was no heavy makeup. There was no expensive jewelry. Just a steady, direct gaze and a raw, real beauty that broke through any social media filter. The silence was broken by the sharp sound of someone knocking over a glass. Then some nervous laughter and a growing buzz. But Ethan, he smiled again. And for the first time, he took a step forward. He took the microphone from her hand and said something no one expected. Thank you. That's all. 2 seconds of silence. And then he added, you had the courage to do what few would do. To stop a ceremony that seemed right on paper, but needed truth to be fair. I came here believing I was fulfilling a family duty. But I understand now that you are freeing us from a destiny based on appearances. This is freedom. This is respect. The hall turned into chaos. Some stood up in protest. Others applauded. The older relatives looked scandalized, while the younger ones began recording everything with their cell phones. The hashtag Bride of the Year began trending in real time on social media. Memes with "Millionaire rejected" and "Bride who left everything at the altar" exploded in WhatsApp groups. But there, in the center of it all, 2 human beings breathed a sigh of relief. Anya bowed in gratitude. Not out of submission, but out of respect. And Ethan returned the gesture. Instead of wedding rings, they exchanged a symbolic handshake. And they walked away together, side by side, not as husband and wife, but as accomplices in a rare, true decision that no one expected to see. But this story doesn't end here. In the days that followed, the digital world exploded. Anya was sought after by magazines, invitations to interviews, brands wanting to know who was the woman who challenged centuries of tradition with one sentence. Ethan, on the other hand, was called a hero by some, a coward by others, but never spoke directly. Until, 7 days later, he posted a short video. In the video, he said, "The beauty they told me she didn't have, was the only thing that set me free." And that video reached 32 million views in 48 hours. But wait, because part 3 will show you what no one saw behind the scenes. And the final twist that made it all make even more sense. If you're still there, take a breath, because the next part will blow your mind. And it was at that moment, with all eyes on her, that Anya raised the microphone firmly, took a deep breath, and said loudly and clearly, "I'm not marrying Ethan." The hall was in shock. For a few seconds, no one even breathed. Ethan stared at her, surprised, but without any sign of anger or confusion. Just silence. Anya then continued, her voice still steady, "All my life, I've been told that I'm not pretty enough, that I don't deserve a place in the spotlight, that my future depends on the acceptance of others. But today, here, in front of everyone, I choose to accept myself. I choose my freedom." The impact was immediate. Half of the guests couldn't even process what they were hearing. Others applauded. Some cried. And Ethan just smiled. Because, deep down, he already knew. He had already realized that this day would not be like the others. That this woman who seemed so submissive was about to make history. Anya looked at him and said, "You are a man of honor, Ethan. And I thank you for that. But this marriage will not happen." She then handed the microphone to one of the monks and walked across the hall as if she were in a parade. Her head held high. Without hesitation. The red veil still covered part of her face, but now it was a symbol of something much greater. The press, of course, went wild. Within minutes, videos of the altar were being broadcast across 5 continents. Headlines such as, "Bride rejects millionaire at the altar and becomes a symbol of female freedom," dominated the news sites. But behind the bold gesture, there was a plan. A plan that had been months in the making. Anya was not just a shy young woman from a small village. She was a strategist. Intelligent. Calculating. And extremely prepared. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew that the world would love the story of a woman considered ugly, who rejected a perfect man. She knew the shock would be so great that no one would question why. And it worked. Days after the wedding, Anya appeared in interviews with major broadcasters, gave lectures on empowerment, launched a digital biography titled "The Veil No Longer Hides Me," and transformed her image into a $1 million brand. Partnerships with luxury brands, invitations to events in Dubai, New York, Milan. All this in less than 2 months. Ethan, for his part, never denied the story. He never gave interviews. He never told his side of the story. He just went on with his life, as if he had already expected the outcome. Some say he really fell in love with her, and that his fiancée's gesture freed him too. Others say he was manipulated from the beginning. But one thing is certain, Anya became a legend. The wedding that was supposed to be a traditional union turned into the biggest narrative twist in recent years. And it all started with silence. With looks. With the details that no one saw. But that she controlled from the beginning. Now tell me, after a story like this, are you really going to leave here without subscribing to this channel? Are you going to miss the next twists and turns, the next crazy things that real life throws at us wrapped up like a soap opera? If you've made it this far, it's because you felt something. You were hooked. You were curious. So give something back, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and leave a like. Because every week there's more real, shocking, unexpected stories. And I guarantee you, the next ones are even crazier than this one. And remember, when someone tells you that you're not good enough, do what Anya did, turn judgment into a stage, rejection into profit, and the end, into your own beginning.